Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our December 3rd council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Gottstein?
Here.
Mr. Babalani?
Here.
We need approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 19th and the special meeting of November 27th. Any additions or corrections?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 19th, 2012, and the special meeting of November 27th, 2012.
Support. I think there's one change. Sorry, on the special meeting minutes, the adjournment, we have down as made by Councilmember Babani. I don't think Bob was at the meeting.
Yeah, he wasn't here.
Yeah, right.
Not a special one, no.
Yeah, the special, yeah, he's here. Lee, I think you made
I
that.
think we
No, that's the bottom one. It doesn't s- This was a special.
The motion will include that correction, please.
roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Approval manifest 2012-23, the amount of $307,870.04. Mark.
I have a couple, Jeremy. On the front page there, down under the police department, I see we put 4 new tires on 2 vehicles. One of these is not the vehicle that we're gonna be parking, is it? 1003 and 1004.
Yeah, I don't know, Mark, I'll have to get back to you on that.
I know that
Which
the
vehicles?
new car came in, it sounds like Ray told me that before, so we probably shouldn't have put new tires on if we're gonna be parking it.
I'll get back to you on that.
On page 1 here, under the general fund, we got Barb for the graphic design again of $300, and then there was another one here, oh, that's a DDA, on page 2. I know Barb does a good job, but is that, that's all ongoing? I don't know how much she can be doing on the website. Is that all strictly website, Ray, on the first one?
No, it's, there's a wide range of stuff she's doing for me. I'm contacting her, and we got her on a monthly basis, but I contact her and have her do different things for different groups that I'm working on, Parks and Rec and different
Oh,
things that
okay.
she's doing.
Okay. Page 3, Joe, under the electric side, we got a crimper for $938 and a compressor for $410. Is that a tool replacement or is that an added tool?
No, those are replacing tools that are real old and wore out. They don't crimp properly anymore. Those are specialty crimpers for the electrical industry for crimping wires.
Okay. Under page 5, on the water fund, we have something here for Kleiman. I was just curious, a 2-hour labor with the truck damage to the well, $330?
That's insurance claim.
Yeah, that was an insurance claim, Mark.
Okay. Miss Dig, just up above there on page 5. I've never seen that before in a couple of years I've been here. Membership fee.
We
Do
paid
all
that.
the municipalities have to pay a
Yeah,
fee?
we paid that annually. We paid a Mystic fee annually.
All the municipalities pay?
Yeah.
Okay. that's all I-
Members, all the members pay it. You know, there's utilities.
Okay, but I mean, all the municipalities like Iron Mountain, Kingsford.
Right, if they're,
Quincy, they all have to be,
yeah, with their utilities, they have to.
okay,
have to pay.
that's all I have.
Hey, Chris.
Nothing.
Dr. Hayes.
I was wondering, on this gravel purchase, you don't have any gravel left over from when we had it crushed a couple of years ago?
No.
It's been long.
No, we've had to go through and think we've gone through a couple times when we had it
This
crushed.
will be the second gravel purchase from when we had that little bit crushed.
Yeah.
And I guess we've got 8 or 10 something thousand envelope pre-stamp purchases. I was wondering why the recreation department needed 1,000 envelopes, but I guess they send out things too.
It's a 1,000 purchase, and it's just the cost is divided amongst each department. They didn't buy 1,000, 1,000 was purchased.
Okay, so everyone splits it then, okay.
Yep.
Well, you get 1,000 envelopes for $46.28. That's the only questions I had.
Lee?
Page 5, bottom of the water fund, professional services, CCI systems, fiber installation to water tower, $16.95. Are we through with that project?
We're through with the fiber for the water department. I'm working on getting estimates for the automation of that project now that the fiber is complete. I'll be bringing them to you in the next few months.
And I'm sure that was a budgeted item.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
The only thing I had was the crimpers and that marker I already got. So with that, we need a motion to approve the manifest.
I make a motion, we approve manifest 2012-23 in amount of $307,870.04.
Support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes manifest or anything on the agenda? If you do, please come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Okay. First thing on the agenda this evening is Resolution 2012-30, Sturgeon Falls Hydroelectric Facility, FERC mandated safety plan. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an item that we've had on the agenda through committee meeting of the whole the last two meetings, both meetings in November. As promised, we brought to council for the December meeting Resolution 2012-30 approving the plan. The plan is basically the same as what we had at the last committee meeting of the whole. There were no comments. Comments were incorporated from the first meeting. Joe, do you have any additional comments?
No, I do not.
Okay, so I guess we can entertain them at this time or move towards passing the resolution.
With this, Ray, this was reviewed by like Mead and Hunt and
Yes.
Yes.
any other questions, comments? Otherwise, we're looking for a motion.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2012-30.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Approval of the Empower GPS data collection and GIS mapping. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a continuation of our GIS mapping data collection program that we've been running for the past 4 or 5 years. We've done quite a bit of mapping to this date, or to date. We're still working with our utilities in this data collection effort. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Pickert. He can give you some additional details, but this is a budgeted item we talked about during budget hearings, and what's different here is asking Empower to handle some of this work as opposed to Coleman Engineering, who we've been using up to this point.
What Ray is talking about is the things that I was going to mention, that up to this point, we've been using Coleman. Coleman Engineering does not have an electrical engineer on staff. We're at a point now where a lot of technical information has to be inserted into the mapping programs, and the $7,800 that I'm asking for approval tonight is a budgeted item. It was in to be paid to Coleman, but we've determined that, and Coleman agreed that it would be better off if we now use the efforts of Empower to finish it up. And so basically what I'm just telling everybody at the council level here tonight and get your approval on is that I would like to switch from Coleman to Empower, and continue to do it in the facet that we have been doing it to finish the project.
And looking at this, Phase 2 is on here. That's not budgeted for this year? is
No.
that- Is that you
Phase
planning-
2
Planning for next year's budget?
Right. Every year, I put in Phase 2 because I wanted to let everybody know that it does continue on. This is not an effort that's going to be done next year. It might be done the year after that. But during the budget, I will get enough money appropriated to continue on like we have been every year.
How many phases is there, just the two, being the second one is 20 to
If
$25,000?
we decide during the budget process, Mark, that it's 25,000 to finish, let's just say it is, and I can budget that for 1 year, it will be Phase 2 and done. If I can't do that, we would do 10,000 and then 15,000 the next year or something like that.
How often does that have to be updated, when there's a major extension or anything like
And-
that? Or does it
yes.
have to be updated on a regular basis?
Once we get the foundation mapping done, it's easy to update. Coleman can update it. But every time we change something in the system, let's say we go change a transformer, we have to make a change in the mapping because it maps the serial number of the transformer, the size of the transformer, all kinds of very important information will all be in this
Is that
mapping.
something that we could learn to do in-house, so we don't have to contract a maintenance contract for this with Coleman? For the update, once it's in place, once the base is
If-
there?
I would have to look into that, Jeremy, before I could answer the question. It's maybe possible, but
I think it's gonna be important that we do it, because it's gonna save us a lot of money, and if it's an ongoing cost.
I'd have to look at the software that's needed to do it and the computer and get pricing and stuff like that, but
Yeah, we're still in the development phase, getting the base data in, and it's gonna be mainly like, we have to do the same thing with water and sewer, which is not quite as big of an effort, but it still needs to be done, and that'll be handled under as-built. So when we do projects, we can also stipulate that as part of the project, that we have data files. It's not just a paper drawing, you get electronic versions, and we actually put in there that when we have the engineering firm, whoever's handling the project, that's part of the requirements to update the electronic version of the as-bills, as well as any, in fact, it would be more important than any kind of a written as-bill.
I think the major lines would have to be hired out, but as far as changing the transformers and things like that, and just changing serial numbers,
Yeah.
we need to try to
there's
do
some
that.
input data that, yes,
And that we
should
should try and do that as much as we can in-house at that point, if we can,
Joel, have we used this Empower before?
we've used all of their software. Coleman Engineering has purchased their software, and then we pay rental every year for it. Empower is what hosts our property maintenance, not property maintenance, but property tax ID on our website and everything. That's the stuff that hosts all that, so people can access it through the web system to look up tax information.
I know we've been working with them for a couple of years, Lee, because they came down, I would say 3-4 years ago, and did a presentation in the basement just on their program and what they did.
Yeah, working with Coleman is kind of like working with them, except now I'm using a little bit of their brain power for the final steps of the project.
I'd just like to say, I'm glad to see that all the phases are on here, so we know what we're getting into from the beginning.
Yeah, I didn't want you to not know that it's an ongoing thing.
But once phase 2 is complete, then we're pretty well done,
Oh, yeah,
unless we
one-
have a major extension, right?
Right, yeah, that is correct, yep.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the electric department Empower GIS update proposal, not to exceed $7,800.
Second.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Last thing on the agenda for this evening is approval, Magnum Land and Development land transaction. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This particular item, we've been discussing for a couple months. It started when we had noticed that we didn't have an easement for the small road that goes to our water tower up on, going up the hill. We contacted the property owner, Mike Godstein, has a Magnum land property, and we asked him if we would be able to get an easement. Through the conversations, he said, why don't I just donate a portion of property to you, then we don't have to, so we're doing paperwork anyway, we'll you know, you take ownership of the road as opposed to an easement. So as we went through that, that's what Jay and I have been working on, to get the paperwork straight on that. It would be for $1, the typical transfer of $1. Just so you know that his interest too is that there is a mine pit, small mine pit on that property, but it's a small depression similar to a number of different depressions up on the hill. But his interest was he'll transfer the property to us, and we take that portion as well. So it's a council's prerogative, but paperwork has been finalized, and we just need an approval to move forward.
What is that little shack that's been moved up there?
That's our water equipment.
Okay,
That's where they're going to hold the fiber
okay,
and the communications to get back to the well site.
okay.
For full disclosure, I just wanted to state so everybody knew that Mike Godstein is Chris's father in this. So I just wanted to make it clear that everybody knew. Is there any other questions or comments?
There's also some sort of a mortgage being held by a third party, and we're getting that cleared up, and I've talked to that party, and I've talked to Mr. Godstein, and we're getting that straightened out. It's not a big deal. It's just something that has to be done. It's a typical thing when you're dealing with real estate. If there's any liens, you check, and you note that we sent back in September that deed that we prepared and asked the title company to come up with it, and we got some information. So we're processing it. Everything should be done, I would think, within a week to 10 days. It's just a matter of getting everything through the mail at the holiday season, and we should be done with it. And we'll be able to record these documents and thank the folks at Magnum Land for making it easy for us.
I think it's probably important that it's brought up that there is not a real good easement to get in other than that way, to get up there.
No, that's our,
Pretty much it.
pretty much our road to go in and out. We've been using it since the tank was built, and just a matter of we found that there was no paperwork, and we need to make that right. So,
There won't need to be any surveying with this.
already done, it's handled.
Make a motion that we purchase land from Magnum Land and Development for a price not to exceed $1.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Babawani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Abstain.
And that's the conclusion of our business this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Would anybody wish to come up and address the council on any topic? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Okay, Lee.
One comment, looking through my notes, I want to say it might be as far back as September. When the optic line work was going through the city on US 2, they dug up our power line or a water line or something over here on the highway by Stone Road, and I asked that we bill them.
They hit the
Did we
gas
ever?
line. They hit the
They
gas
hit
line.
the gas line, but the fire department got called out.
Right.
I mean, that was an expense.
Right.
And I asked if we billed them, and did they,
Yes, and they paid.
okay, that's,
We billed them under our ordinance, which is a $500 per occurrence, and they paid the bill.
okay, and the only other thing, I hope everybody shows up Friday night for the Christmas parade at 6 o'clock. That's all.
Okay, Dr. Hayes?
I'd like to see some kind of policy in the city where we try to reduce our gas consumption. I saw a city truck parked in front of an establishment with the motor running for at least 10 minutes. At least that was my estimate. And I think if we're going to be in a building someplace, the car ought to be turned off. I'd like to see some kind of policy that we do more things if we can to reduce our consumption of fuel.
Okay.
That's my any comment tonight.
Mark?
I have a couple here. Kimberly Road, Joe, I was down there the other day, probably about quarter mile past Marvin Pollard's, and there's a lot of telephone poles, or power poles there, that are hurting, they're falling over.
Yeah, when they redid the road, it's all muck in there, and it pushed them over. We haven't gone through and straightened them, so I guess we'll get to them, Mark, when we can, get them
Okay.
straightened up.
The sidewalk machine, I see the new one was out when we got that little dusting on the highway.
Yep,
And I know that we typically only do the highway. I know it's a good idea for us to do it, but the state only pays us for doing it twice a year. And we did it already and we only had half-inch of snow.
it's my understanding that the state will only pay us twice a year for a major cleanup, but for cleaning the sidewalk, Ray and I had discussed that we were just gonna bill them for it and see where we go with that, for cleaning and keeping the sidewalks clean.
The estimate that they have for us in our budget, where they say 2 times a year, is the traditional where we start at like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and, you know, take the grader and really do a thorough cleaning. So there's a line item budget, and what we said is, let's just do it and bill them, and whatever we do along the highway, we do anyway, we bill those hours, and coming upon them to come back to us then to, I guess, argue that we're billing too much.
So we don't know if we're gonna get paid for that yet?
We'll get paid up to that, at least that budget amount, but it's gonna be well under, at least going up and down, the way we're doing it now is gonna be well under what the estimate is or what the budget is, because that involves, I don't know how many, almost a full crew with all the equipment. So this is one guy with the machine.
So yeah, if we keep it clean with the machine, we can probably get a lot more
Right.
miles out of that same dollar amount.
Yeah, and that's what we're gonna do this year.
And then I didn't see the machine really up by the school. You know, they were doing it along the highway and I didn't see the machine up by the school. And I thought that's what we got the $142,000 machine for.
It's to do the sidewalks around the school also, yes, it is.
But they weren't even there. The other one that I have, I had asked about the properties that are for sale through the city. There's a couple undesirable lots, or less desirable lots, I'd want to say. And I know when I originally had suggested a few years back, we got rid of a couple to Habitat. I don't believe Habitat has any more lots in the city of Norway where they were going to build. And I think we should be pretty aggressive because we are going to make some tax money off the houses that they built. So I think we need to get all over that. I didn't see that after I suggested that.
I've been talking with Habitat.
Okay, I didn't see anything in the minutes here.
What I can do, Mark, is why don't I take a look at some of those properties and some of the discussions I've had with them, and I'll put that in the next memo.
Okay.
Let you know what those discussions are.
I mean, before they pick other sites.
Yeah, they're invested in going in over here, and then they have certain, the way they set that up, they have certain monies for different communities, and then depending on, they have a number of projects, and they present those projects to try and get the grant money. And we've been pretty fortunate because our projects are pretty good projects for them, so it's not even a queue situation. They have about 3 or 4 around the county that they're looking at, and if that property is appealing enough to whoever they're getting their grant from, they'll get that money over somebody else. So that, I do talk to them quite a bit because that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's a good chance for us to get rid of them
Yeah.
and get some property money coming back. Joe, I kind of wanted just a quick update on the hydro.
Okay, Kaiser's still in there doing mechanical work. A couple electricians are in there now, starting to work on some of the electrical for unit number 2. Things are moving forward, probably not as fast as what they thought it was going to, but I don't see any reason, sometime, in my opinion, sometime in January, probably the early part of February, it should be complete, somewhere in that time frame. They were hoping for the end of December, but I personally just don't see it going that fast, so, but it's moving along.
Okay, that's all I have.
Chris? I've got nothing this evening. Joe, anything else?
No, I don't have any other comments.
Mary? No, nothing. Tricia? Jay?
No, sir.
Ray?
WLUK. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Channel 11 is, we are not going to be able to carry Channel 11 out of Green Bay, Fox out of Green Bay, come January 1st. So we're giving our 30-day notice or our 1-month notice here. Put it on Channel 7. It'll be in the bills. There's a note in the bills, and it's due to the contracts from Fox. So we're required, because we're in the UP, we're in Michigan, not in Wisconsin, we're required to carry Fox out of Marquette only and not allow 2 Foxes. So we're currently looking at what we can replace it with, but at this point, we're not quite sure because there's other requirements that we have to follow. So I don't know if there's any questions from
Are
council.
we gonna put anything else on Channel 11?
Yes, we're not gonna leave it blank. We'll figure out something, but at this point, it's a little early in the game. We just found out about it late Friday, so we've been working today. Joe has been working on some alternatives, but we're nowhere near having even good suggestions at this point. All we know is that come the end of December, it will be done. We can't have it anymore. Now, I do know that this year it kind of worked out. If you looked at the Fox UP station, the Lions-Packers split, I guess it kind of worked out where you didn't miss many of the games because of the amount of Sunday night games and amount of high-profile games. That's not going to be the case every year. So that's just kind of maybe an anomaly this year. I'm hoping that maybe will continue, that we'll not miss many of those games. But I think what Fox UP does is they try to split Detroit games with Green Bay games. So then we got Christmas coming up this month, and we got a bill stuffer coming in, and we got some advertisements going out. But just remember during the Christmas and New Year's week that garbage collection will be moved one day from Tuesday to Wednesday, starting on Wednesday. So we're going to have that information out plenty of time. So Santa Parade on Friday.
Joe, there was a cable outage of some kind here the last few days?
The last few days?
Or was there one that was?
Several weeks ago, we had the big one on USA. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, I had somebody confront me that it wasn't on the TV channel. Was that advertised on the TV channel? The guy came down here with his box. He thought he had issues, and he didn't. He wound up that he didn't see it on Channel 7. Do you know if that stuff is put on 7
Well,
normally?
we had it up that night at 4 in the morning. A good portion of it was up, and then we continued into Saturday to get the rest of it up.
That was a system-wide.
That was a system-wide outage. I don't know
But
if
I mean,
that's not
are
what you're
those
talking
scheduled?
about.
Yeah, are those scheduled outages put on?
No, this
No,
was
that
hit,
was
Or was a break?
That was a
This
break.
was
That
hit by a semi.
Weather-related.
Oh.
had a bunch of broken poles and everything ripped down, and
Yeah, that was
a lot of problems.
Weather tipped a pole over, semi caught the wire.
Okay, I remember that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
We will be entering into executive session to discuss union collective bargaining negotiations. There will be no action taken after the executive session. Looking for a motion to close regular session and go into executive session.
I make a motion, we close regular session and go into closed session.
I'll support. Motion made by Mark, supported by myself. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Are we gonna have any action after the?
I said that.